What is up, my friends on YouTube? I want to come and talk to you guys today about a stock I've never talked about on this channel before, but it's one that I think has huge possibilities in front of it, right? Probably know it from the title, and that is CoreWeave stock, right? This is like a stock that I've seen that not a lot of people know a lot about, not a lot of videos on YouTube about it, and I really don't know why. They IPO'd fairly recently, but like a whole bunch of different big tech companies are like gushing over CoreWeave. Specifically, the number one that I would say that is gushing is Nvidia, right? So let's just get right into it. If you're into CoreWeave, you're into AI stocks or crypto or asymmetric bets, that's things that like you can put a little bit of your portfolio into and make a lot of money down the road, definitely subscribe to the channel because I bring up these types of stocks on a daily basis, right? And I really try to bring a lot of value in these videos to the people that watch them. And sorry about that, FSD is freaking out. Anyway, guys, just subscribe to the channel. Let me know how many CoreWeave shares if you have them in the comment section below, and what your price target is for CoreWeave, or if you like CoreWeave's business model or anything like that. Let's just get some discussions going. Okay, so CoreWeave. What is CoreWeave? CoreWeave is an AI company, right? I'm not saying that they make their own software, because they don't do that, that's for sure. But what they do is, what they do is they essentially are like a gigantic GPU data cluster house, right? Their business model, it's complex, but when you get to the nitty gritty of it and you understand on a high level, it's really not that bad. Basically what they do is they acquire as many Nvidia GPUs as possible. I believe they've got some AMD deals on the way as well. They're gonna use some AMD GPUs, but right now, I believe they are exclusively Nvidia GPUs, and they have over 250,000 GPUs, right? Some of the older ones, some of the newer H100s, as well as some of the Blackwells, right? And so here's the thing: is like CoreWeave is one of Nvidia's biggest investments. So Nvidia is in bed with CoreWeave on a high level, right? So like Nvidia wants CoreWeave to do well, and essentially because Nvidia controls where their GPUs go, they can facilitate CoreWeave's success, right? So here's the way it works: is that Nvidia designs the GPU, then TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor, fabricates the GPU, and then from there, Nvidia can sell the GPU to whoever they would please, whoever they want to, right? Now, they are heavily incentivized to sell these GPUs to CoreWeave, right? That's a big deal, because there's like way more demand than supply on Nvidia GPUs. That's why they consider Jensen Huang to be the godfather of AI. He's really like the puppet master behind all of this stuff. And the deeper dives you go into with respect to GPUs and AI and everything happening as far as down that road, it's like you really realize the impact Jensen Huang himself has, and how he is actually one of the most powerful people on the entire planet right now, for sure, because he decides who gets his GPUs, especially the brand new ones. And the brand new ones have the most computing power, the fastest, and yeah. So essentially, Nvidia designs, TSMC fabricates, and then a decent chunk, a good percentage of those GPUs go to CoreWeave, right? And CoreWeave has, I believe, 33 data centers located all over the US. They've also got some data centers in Europe, but these data centers all over the US are a big deal, right? Because they've got over 250,000 GPUs. I've already said that. And essentially what's happening is these big tech companies, the Microsofts of the world, the Googles, the OpenAIs, the Metas, right? They're giving CoreWeave just these gigantic deals, right? Giving CoreWeave like tens of billions of dollars each, just for them to be able to train their AI algorithms, their AI models on CoreWeave's capacity when it comes to their GPUs, okay? Huge deal. We're talking like their backlog is over $30 billion. I think it could be up to $40 or $50 billion in backlog, right? There's some bad things about CoreWeave that, if you think about the business model, of course they're going to exist, right? It's just part of the deal. But like, I'm trying to go off like, what's the big deal first? What's the good news? The good news is like OpenAI has committed like $25 billion to to CoreWeave, right? To be able to use some of their GPUs, and it's just like, it's like a renting them essentially, right? It's all CoreWeave's GPUs, but OpenAI wants to rent them to be able to train their GPT models, right? Same thing with Meta. Meta has committed $15 billion to CoreWeave to be able to train on CoreWeave's GPUs. Google, I can't remember what the dollar amount is, but Microsoft right now, Microsoft comprises like 70% of CoreWeave's revenue, which is pretty wild to have one customer contribute that much to your revenue. But the further you get down this like supply and demand rabbit hole when it comes to Nvidia GPUs with H100s and Blackwell chips, the more you realize it's the people that control the GPUs that control the freaking world right now. Like, they have all the leverage because every one of these big tech companies has their own different LLM, their own large language model, their own agentic AI that they're trying to build, right? And to do that, they need to be able to train, right? And to be able to train, you've got billions, trillions of data sets and all these matrix multiplication, all these things that you have to say, you have to give the AI pictures of things that look like a cat and things that don't look like a cat, and label them. Say, hey, this is a cat, this is not a cat, this is a cat, this is not a cat. This, it's more complicated than that, but that's kind of the idea. Where you're training, you're studying for the test. That's what the training is, right? AI training is you're studying for the test, right? Compared to, let's say, AI inference, which is basically taking the test, taking the college exam, right? So like when you input your question to GPT, you say, hey, why does the sun rise in the east and set in the west, right? So it already knows that. It's already been trained to tell you why, but the inference will tell you why. So the inference is like providing the answers to the test. It already did all the studying, the bulk of the work's done. You're just coming in here and marking some answers down. That's what inference is, right? So it's much less compute heavy. But while we are still in this phase where we are trying to train AI, and this phase we don't know how long it's going to last. How long are they going to be heavily using, heavy computing power, that requires brand new GPUs, right? How long are we going to do this? And for me, it's for the foreseeable future. You want your Chat GPTs, your Llamas, your Groks. You want your LLMs to be as smart as possible, and you want the people of the world to use your LLM instead of someone else's. Like Google has Gemini, right? So like, in order to do that, you have to have the most training capacity, and you have to be able to train. It really does scale up with computing power, with GPUs, and that's like the part that's like hardest for these big tech companies to actually like execute on, for sure, and to come to realize, right? So there's no way. So like, you have the DeepSeek model over in China, where at first they thought that they built this LLM with like 1,000 GPUs or something, some crazy small number. And then the further they got into, they realized, oh wow, they actually have 50,000 Nvidia GPUs that they're training this LLM on, right? So it's like, that is the bottom line, is like how smart your large language model is directly correlated, directly aligned with your amount of high computing power GPUs. So Nvidia runs this ecosystem. And Jensen Huang, as Dan Ives says, is absolutely the godfather of AI, right? So you kind of get where CoreWeave's at. They facilitate AI training, right? Because they've got all these brand new Nvidia GPUs, because they have deals linked with Nvidia, right? Because Nvidia doesn't want to operate this on their own. Nvidia makes loads of cash with just their business model being the OEM and designing these chips, using their own AI to design their own chips, right? To design better and better and better chips, right? Now, that being said, Jensen Huang and Nvidia saw the opportunity for giant GPU data clusters that could be rented to the market, rented to big tech companies that are all fighting over the same thing, which is artificial superintelligence in the form of an agentic AI. Okay, that's the world we're living in 2025 right now, right? That's where we're at. Now, how does Nvidia facilitate success for CoreWeave? Number one, they get priority access to the very best chips, the newest chips, the newest GPUs that Nvidia makes, right? They give priority access to CoreWeave. There's a few other competitors to CoreWeave, but CoreWeave is like the dominant player in this renting of GPUs industry. CoreWeave is the number one. There's a few others, but like I said, CoreWeave is what we're making this video on, right? So not only does Nvidia facilitate success with CoreWeave because they give them the brand new and nicest, fastest chips, but they also, CoreWeave is Nvidia's largest investment, right? As far as like in another company, like a pre-IPO investment. They've owned this company since it's been private. So they're already like in the game. They put their money where their mouth is because they see a lot of success in CoreWeave's future, and that's, in my opinion, based upon simply supply and demand. They understand supply and demand of GPUs better than anyone else on the entire planet because they're the ones selling them, right? As well as Nvidia trains their own AI on GPUs, right? And so Nvidia has a deal, a $6.3 billion deal with CoreWeave that allows them to use any excess capacity that CoreWeave has until 2032. So essentially, CoreWeave will have zero downtime with any of their GPUs. Like they're guaranteed basically to sell out of all their storage units, if you want to call it a storage unit, 'cause that's really all it is. It's like you got a company that's got storage units, people need to put their stuff in the storage unit, okay? It's the exact same thing, because you're just renting the storage unit, and at the end of the day, like, you're renting these storage units for like tens of billions of dollars, right? Because there's just not enough supply of H100s and Blackwell chips. They're just not there, right? And it's not like there's not gonna be like this giant influx of super fast, super awesome GPUs anytime soon, right? Like, what other companies are making GPUs? Nvidia, AMD, Broadcom, right? Like, maybe there's some other ones, but they don't make a lot, right? And not only that, but there's only really one company in the world that actually fabricates the GPUs, which is TSMC, right? And even at that point, even if you make more, does the demand decrease? Or just because the supply goes up, does the demand go up as well? It is. So my contention here, my claim is essentially that like only certain companies at this point, only the biggest and best companies with the most amount of money on their balance sheets, the Microsofts, the Googles, the Nvidias, the Metas, you know, these types of companies, can actually afford GPUs at this point, XAI, right? All these other companies would love to be able to get into AI and train their own AI algorithms, create their own LLMs, create their own like agentic AIs for whatever reason. But like the cost to entry in this industry right now is so crazy high that it actually, you know, demand goes down. So we haven't, in my claim here is that we haven't even seen the tippy top Mount Everest of demand because the cost to entry is so high. It's kind of like the real estate market where like, you know, you want a house, but you only make $10 an hour and the average house is $200,000. It's like, yeah, I want a house, I just can't afford it. Not personally, I own my own house, but like, you know, there's a lot of people like that, right? So like the demand for housing is there, just like the demand for GPUs is there. Just the cost entry is ridiculously high. So you kind of get the idea of what the good things are about CoreWeave now that we're 13 minutes into the video. And that's a very, you know, overview, like high level overview of CoreWeave, right, as far as their business model. So let's look at the downsides, right? They are very, very debt heavy, okay? They've got somewhere in the mid 20 billions of debt because essentially they finance all of these GPUs from Nvidia, right? They finance the GPUs from Nvidia, they pay interest payments on that. I'm not sure what their interest payment is, but like I said, it's in the mid 20 billions as far as like the amount of debt they have, okay? And essentially their financing is based upon, you know, demand. It's demand driven. So when Meta says, hey, we're gonna give you $15 billion to use some of your capacity at CoreWeave, you know, it's like, okay, well then that substantiates, you know, CoreWeave to go buy $15 billion more worth of GPUs from Nvidia. So a lot of people might say this is circular, but at the end of the day, like these big tech companies are making a lot of money, whether it's from AI or their other products. And now they're funneling that money into their future projects, which are all agentic AI, and how the agentic AI plays into the rest of their products, like the Meta glasses, or like, you know, what Microsoft and Google and all these other places are doing, XAI. You know, so it's like these companies make profit on the side, and now they're all going after artificial and super intelligence. Okay, so If you want to call it circular, you can. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about this. I personally don't think it's circular. I think, and I don't believe we're in an AI bubble. I just don't think people understand the supply and demand and how much AI is going to impact our like actual day-to-day lives, and how it's going to increase productivity, like take over the labor market, reduce a lot of jobs. I really see that happening imminently, like really quickly. Okay, but anyway, so they've got a lot of debt. Okay, they've also got a lot of assets. From what I saw, their GPUs, their facilities, everything is worth more than their debt. I think it's pretty close to the same amount, but it's like closer to 30 billion in assets, right? So they do more assets than they do liabilities, as well as I think they have around $2 billion in cash on hand. Now, that might make you think, oh, you know, what if I get diluted? Are they going to dilute shareholders anytime soon? So let me tell you, they just IPO, you know, less than 6 months ago. So that's kind of a red flag for dilution of shareholders. Now, I'm not saying they will, I'm not saying they won't. Historically, they've financed their GPU acquisitions through debt, right? Now, that being said, I'm sure that if, you know, CoreWeave stock price was $500, $1,000 tomorrow, where it's just 5 or 10x overnight, oh yeah, they're diluting you. Sorry. They're going to dilute, and at that point, the dilution wouldn't even, you know, because they're worth $65 billion right now in the stock market. That's what their market cap is, right? So if they just 10x, they went to 650 billion, you know, then if they're diluting you for 30 billion or something to, you know, go buy some more GPUs, that doesn't hurt as much. But at 64 billion, you know, if they were to dilute 10, 15, 20 billion, that's, I mean, they're not going to do that. They're not going to dilute 30%. You know, I just don't see it, right? So my personal humble opinion from a guy on YouTube is I think they're going to continue to use debt financing in order to facilitate their GPU purchases. So yeah, that's good, but at the same time, you are still paying interest on those, right? And at the end of the day, what do they have? They've got all these GPUs, right? So something else a lot of people bring up, it's a completely valid concern, is like, what happens to these GPUs 5 or 6 years down the road when Nvidia comes out with something way more awesome, way faster, that type of thing, right? Completely valid question. It was one of the first questions I had. It's like, well, this doesn't make sense. The GPUs are going to get outdated. Okay, well, once you go down that rabbit hole and you find out that even these older GPUs are super valuable. I mean, crazy valuable, right? Because amongst other things, the number one thing that they can be used for is AI inference, right? So why is AI inference a big deal? Because as the AI models get trained to near perfection, right, they need the best quality GPUs to train AI models, right? Because you're studying for the test there. You're doing all the calculations. You're doing all the matrix multiplication. You're learning. You're doing the actual hard learning in the AI training portion, right? The AI inference portion is much less heavy. You can almost do it with CPUs, right? But if you have GPUs, you're better off, right? So, and as let's say ChatGPT gets to near perfection, then more and more and more people will be using it. So you will need more and more and more AI inference, right? You'll need more and more and more computing power to be able to write the answers to the test to the user, to give the answers, right? So what I'm saying is, as AI training gets better, AI inference demand increases substantially, right? So yeah, it's like the business model for CoreWeave makes total sense, right? It's like, it's basically something that Nvidia could have done themselves, but they don't want all the liability, they don't want all the complex stuff, right? They just want to invest in it, make it their biggest investment, help out as they can so that their investment grows, right? And they're using Nvidia chips anyway, Nvidia GPUs, so it's like, it's just the best of every world for Nvidia, except for it makes sense that they didn't want to create it in their own business model. They are a chip designer. They are not a renter of GPU capability, GPU capacity. That's not what they want, right? But they're facilitating success by even telling CoreWeave, from here until 2032, you got guaranteed full capacity use. Your entire business model just depends upon what interest rate you get from the bank in order to finance these GPUs, as well as how quickly you can set up these GPU clusters, right? That's literally it, because the demand's there. You don't even have to go and like sweet talk Microsoft or sweet talk any of these, big tech companies. They want you. And if anything, they have to sweet talk you, because you are the one with the priority access to the brand new GPUs, right? And then what happens? Basically, these big tech companies they basically purchase the GPUs on behalf of you with their contracts. You get priority access. You go and buy the GPUs, you go buy the real estate, you go build the building, you go set them all up, because that's what you're good at. You're good at building the buildings, or at least contracting someone to build the buildings, and then putting the GPU clusters in there and getting them to operate quickly. That's all CoreWeave has to do, because their phone's ringing off the hook. And I mean off the hook, to train all these AI models. And then even as they continue buying and their GPUs get old, they've got AI inference like crazy. And they're still gonna have tons of places contracting for their AI inference capability. So they're getting all these GPUs essentially for free. They're keeping them, and then AI inference down the road. It's an ingenious business model. It's risky. It's somewhat risky because you're taking out tons of loans, right? You got a lot of debt. The debt to asset ratio is almost 1 at this company, right? They don't have a lot of cash on hand, but what they do have is they've got the godfather of AI on their side, like big time on their side, right? Jensen Huang. They've got Nvidia backing, and it's Nvidia's largest investment. So, guys, I'm sorry this video was so long. I just had to do the deep dive. Had to tell you, there's not very many videos on what CoreWeave is, what it does, what its future is going to be. It started off as a Bitcoin miner. I don't know if I said that earlier. This is like, they started off buying GPUs and CPUs and mining Bitcoin on it, then found out that they have so many other opportunities with this company. So yeah, anyway, guys, I'll keep making videos on CoreWeave. I did buy some shares. I think it's worth a look in your portfolio as a humble guy on YouTube. With that being said, guys, it's 22 minutes in. Definitely subscribe to the channel. What are you doing if you're not subscribed? Let me know downstairs in the comment section below what you think the price target for CoreWeave should be and what you think about their business model. And have yourself a fantastic day.